Hello, welcome to Paranormal Perspectives, episode number 6. So today we're going to talk about a very interesting subject and something that we haven't quite fully touched on in our previous podcast, but it does link to it very closely as it's quite an important subject. Ultimately, we're going to be talking about something that is pretty much the most biggest discovery mankind has ever made, if proven to be true. And if that doesn't get your interest, I don't know what will really, but... So yeah, there's been a lot in the media that's been happening recently, and more people seem to be talking about it. So this is a great time to see, kind of, from the spiritualist perspective, what we think it may be, what it may mean to us, and the wider conversation about humanity's place in the universe. So yeah, my name's Kieran Mace. This is Christine Stewart. So with me today, my local friendly medium. Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good, Kieran. Good to be here. I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight.
Yes, it's going to be an interesting one because I know for a while you've been kind of wanted to kind of talk about this, and I've been sort of thinking for a while about how we would kind of have that conversation because kind of historically it's been seen as taboo, really, and just as I've mentioned in my last episodes, and ultimately it's the purpose for Paranormal Perspectives. People tend to put the word paranormal on something. And paranormal is ultimately a barrier to stop people from going beyond a set parameter, just to learn more about the universe and pretty much bring the power back to themselves. So when we talk about extraterrestrial life, we think about people who are kind of mentally loose or have mental issues, or people who like to make things up and all that. And we can be quite cruel to those who most likely would have experienced something quite life-changing. To Christine, basically. I say to Christine as if there's other people here. I know it's just you. So over to Christine. So what kind of gets you excited about this? Like, what kind of got you interested in this?
Well, I grew up, I was born in 1956. So that was around the whole Roswell incident. And it was always in the background as I grew up. And you would hear stuff because we didn't have social media the way and we didn't have access to the information. But what I remember was that people that believed it were all cuckoo. They were all loonies, taking drugs or something. And I grew up with that kind of, because I wasn't accessing anything else. I grew up believing that, in fact, these people were cuckoo until I saw something. And that only happened. I'm 68. It happened 4 years ago, and I witnessed it with a friend, and it completely changed my mind. Do you want me to tell you about what I saw?
Oh, you have to now. It has to happen. I'm intrigued.
I'm so glad you said that. So luckily, I had a friend here. And we're sitting smoking cigarettes and drinking tea because that's what we do, and talking about people. And it was a bright sunny day. I think it was around this time of the year. And I was sitting over there on the sofa and he was sitting on the chair and we're just chatting. My viewpoint, I can see right out into my garden. I can see all of my garden. I can see the houses beyond the garden. And something... There's two buildings over there, and if you imagine the apex of the house there and the other apex of the other house, there's a space in between. Yeah, probably get a couple of double-decker buses in that space, and something came between the apexes of the two houses at the pinnacle, the top of it, and I said to him, "What the is that?" And he said, "What?" And I said, "What is that in our sky, John?" And he jumped up and he looked up and he went, and there was a lot of expletives which I won't use, like, "What the bleep is that? My God, where?" But so we went to the back door. I have a great big window here and then a door, and it's all glass. So I never lost sight of it at all. We went out, got our phones out, and it came through, and it was like a so it was a disc that was on its side. Sorry, like that. Yeah, not like that. It was like that, and it was coming through the two apexes. It shone. So I think it was shining because the west is there and the sun was coming in. It looked shiny, and it had something in the middle here, and it came. Sorry, I'll get the cameras there, and it came through, and then we by now are in the garden looking up at it, so it's above us, totally silent, absolutely silent. It was not a drone. Before anybody says, "Oh, it's a drone," it was not a drone. Trust me. This thing was the size of a small car. Like an Igo or something like that. Yeah, seriously. And it was totally silent. And it came through at that angle, and then it turned sharply. It literally turned like that. And then turned like that. It was above us. And then it went towards the east, slowly, smoothly, and then bang, disappeared. And we came in, and I said, "You saw that?" And he went, "What was it, Chris? What was that?" I said, "I think we've just seen a UFO." There is no way that I've ever seen anything that I could say was belonging to this planet. It looked like a flying saucer on its side. I mean, I want to say that it didn't, but it did. And it really wasn't a drone. There was drones out here once when they were looking for some dog. I mean, drones up that high look quite small. This was the size of a car. So anyway, I thought, what if anybody else has seen this? So I went on the internet, as you do, UFO sightings. Nothing in this area. However, I came across a wonderful organisation up in Scotland, and you can go there and you can log any sightings that you have. I can't at the moment remember what it's called. And I was looking through some of these sightings, and there was a couple of others that described the same thing that I'd seen. Not on that particular day or anything like that, but as I sat and read through these, there were. So I don't know, Kieran. If I hadn't seen that, I probably wouldn't be having this conversation with you. But I saw something that I cannot explain. I mean, I've worked on air bases. I've been here a long time, and I've never seen anything like that. I'm glad my friend was here, and this is what I said to him. I said, "I'm so glad you were here, because if you hadn't been, I would have thought, nah, just imagined it.
Yeah.
You must be taking something, too much coffee." We're very quick to allow the logical mind to dispel these things, but we know. And funny enough, he came up yesterday, and I asked him about it, and we have exactly the same recollection. We saw what we saw, and we weren't on drugs, and we weren't drinking or any of that stuff. So we were just lots of coffee and nicotine.
But that's fascinating. So it was just a few years ago where, yeah, as you say, like drones were beginning to be more popular, and as we know, they are quite small. They do make quite a lot of noise. So, but you described something that was quite large.
Yes.
So
because totally silent.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing, because if something is so large, often that means it's going to be a greater weight. So to counter the effects of gravity, you're going to need a greater force to do that. Most known kind of man-made technology would exert sound basically in order to repel. For example, the jet engine to repel a certain, push a certain way basically will cause a lot of sound. And it's interesting that it's dead silent. So you could then say, okay, was it suspended in the air by something? So you said you saw it in the sky. So unless there's a crane all the way up in the outer atmosphere holding it up, I mean, your logic does tend to kind of call you to pull yourself back, though. But you do kind of question, like, is it logic, or is it the way in which we were all brought up to never question or, cancel the way that we would think and discover? Are we kind of giving way to a limitation?
Two things stood out: the silence and how smooth it moved. There was, it literally was just like, it was just, oh God. I mean, I wish I had the words for it, but it was not a drone. Like you say, we've had drones and you can hear them. You might not be able to see them because, they can be quite small, but this you could absolutely see. Anyway, we did get a photograph as it moved off, but I could send you it, but it's like a blimp. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we could have our phones right underneath us or underneath that at the time, I'd have loved to have got that. But it's so quick.
Yeah, it seems to be more common now. More people are seeing more things, and I think in the day of the smartphone, we have easier access, more affordable access to photographic equipment, and are able to share photos between each other, and sharing photos with maybe experts in photography or video who can analyze certain images. It's inevitable that we will then capture things that we can't explain. And I've admittedly started to see things myself a little while ago on a journey to work, let's just say anyway, but through sort of a countryside kind of open space. I was looking at something and almost crashed as it kind of caught my attention. So I was just weaving it my way around this kind of outer area of this town in this kind of countryside-ish area. So no other vehicles on the road. The sun was kind of going down at that point, but was still just bright enough for me to be able to see into the sky. I looked up and thought, oh, that's odd. And there was like, to me, at that angle, it looked like a line, a very long metal pipe, but it kind of looked like almost a disc, but at an angle. So it kind of looked like that kind of shape, if you can describe that. And as I approached it, it just wasn't moving. I was looking around thinking, is this some sort of thing suspended in the air? Like, could it be some sort of, I don't know, drone caught in the power lines or whatever it might be? But it was literally just in the air, just sat exactly at this perfect angle, maybe not quite 45 degrees. It was more maybe, I don't know, about 50 degrees, 60 degrees, kind of, that way-ish. Completely silent, not moving an inch. And as I was moving up to it, it just sat there. I was just watching it. As the closer I got to it, the more kind of creeped out I got. I just had this odd feeling, like when they call it the uncanny valley feeling, when you see something that seems everyday, but something is just a bit off about it. And you often get that from a human face. For example, like robots, because they tend to creep people out because it's human, but it's not quite right. But this thing looked real, but not as if it was there, but it wasn't there. And I just drove around it. I was just like, I'd say it's about, I think like the average house height's like 2-floor house height in the UK. Imagine that about 3 high. That's about high if it wasn't in the sky. I'm saying that because near to it was like a house before there was a big open countryside. Anyway, so that's how I was measuring it at the time. But
was it in the middle of the road, Kieran?
It was just off the road in like an open piece of like farmland, suspended quite high up in the air, and it was about as big as I'd say 2.5 cars. So not humongous though, but big enough. Like we're talking like the length of a car, but just big enough, just sitting there, chilling, and. I have no explanation for it. I tried to think about, like I say, drones, about could there be some sort of natural phenomenon that, for example, like ball lightning is quite an interesting one where people tend to sort of see semi-solid objects emitting light. This wasn't quite emitting light, it was still reflecting some of the setting sun, but I could see it there, and it was solid, it was shiny, it was just enough. And yet, there may still be an explanation for it that could be seen as completely normal, who knows? But either way, like I've been interested in the subject for a while, and it's just been gradually building because I don't know about you, Christine. Ever since I was a kid, I always had this gut feeling like this is before I knew that I was a medium anyway. But I had a feeling like the technology that we have now is like in the past. It sounds bizarre. Like we had this amazing computers, mobile phones. Like we have technology that saves lives now in hospitals. But I feel like for some reason that there's something out there that's far greater, and then we're living in the present now, but our technology is in the past. It's sort of withheld. I couldn't explain that feeling like for many years because it seemed illogical. Like, why would I think that? That seems like, something a child would make up, and maybe so. But it's been a gut feeling through all of my life, and it's been gradually building up to the point where, like, I'll say, around the pandemic, when people began to be more introspective, more of this activity began. I just kept kind of seeing these articles about interesting experiences people have had where they've seen things in the sky. They've encountered certain beings and all sorts. And previously, like at that point, despite me having that feeling all my life, I still joked about it because I was so used to socially seeing like news articles where they interview some poor woman that had an abduction experience, or a man that saw something that caused him to have a mental breakdown, and his partner left him, his children disowned him, or because he saw something that people didn't believe, but he was so sure of it. You see these poor people at the same time that people make fun of them. I always kind of was used to just treating it that way. Well, yeah, he's probably a silly person, he probably deserved it, and that's wrong. But yeah, I just did that because that was the thing to do to fit in, because otherwise the light will be turned against you and people begin to question you and so on. It begins to be like a witch hunt. I saw this for years. This was just a normal thing. And as people have begun to speak up more about it, I began to question, because it's more almost like the number of people beginning to speak about it the last few years has caused me to really thoroughly look into it. And this kind of led me to the point where I've been following the disclosure movement from the beginning. And have you heard about the disclosure movement?
Yes, I have. I'm very much into it. Yeah. It was years ago when that first started. I used to hear this word starting being said, disclosure. But again, you see, this ties in with the internet. When I grew up in a time where there wasn't that. So people that did have sightings, couldn't check in with other guys and say, hey, I've had... So, but what's happening is, because we're coming together as a community, we can contact people and all the rest of it. We're now talking about it. I think it had to come where there was a point where something was going to happen, and disclosure was the first thing, like, hey, there is something going on. And all those people that have been vilified and made to feel that there was something wrong with them were going, oh, hold on a minute. I mean, we've all heard of the old historical cases, and you've got people that you quite rightly say their lives have been ruined. Something's happened to them. They've told people, and they're not stupid, and they're not hallucinating. People, why would a person make up a story if it was going to destroy his life or her life? Why would you do that? People say what they see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You had to be very brave to be able to do that in this day and age. And like, for anyone watching this and who doesn't know about disclosure, from what I've learned about it so far, I mean, I can't say for definitely if this is real or not, though. But at the moment, I'm just on that journey. I'm still learning myself, though. So, but it's fascinating either way. So, disclosure at the moment is ultimately, disclose to, thinking about the word itself. It's to reveal. It's to uncover. It's to, show something that previously wasn't seen. So, disclosure is a movement of many different individuals, whether they're military professionals, scientists, doctors, and a lot of these people have had kind of first-hand experience, whether they're kind of active in duty or assisting other people. Some of them are even psychologists that have started out uncovering memories from patients to then have their own experiences, all sorts of different things. And now disclosure is kind of happening because a lot of these people are now speaking out, because they're saying kind of enough's enough now, because from our point of view, we see it as a danger, because if we're patrolling the skies and flying from A to B and so on, and more of these pilots are seeing things, shouldn't they be made aware of these? Because they're trained to deal with certain situations up in the air. But say they encounter something that far outmasters their technology by thousands of years, is able to travel thousands of miles and back again in literally a nanosecond. That's going to be quite scary and quite dangerous and very hard to maneuver should it come towards you. So this whole disclosure movement is basically like people trying to say to the government, hey, look, we're aware that you're aware of this now. And we know that for a long time, you've known about this, and you've been actively not just simply researching and studying these things. You've been recovering certain technologies from things that have fallen from the sky. And I've been trying to learn, essentially reverse engineer certain technologies. This is kind of what I've learned so far. Again, I can't validate if that's true or not. It's just what I've learned so far. But I have a feeling it's going in a certain direction, but happy to be proved wrong if needed. But either way, they're saying that this technology could revolutionize the way that humans live currently. So there's technology there to create an abundance of energy from nothing, from literally resonant energy. And if anybody's interested, if you look up the 0-point energy theory and the devices created which are able to ultimately draw energy from localized assets, as in having no fuel and having no negative output, just simply gathering energy from the particles which bind our particles into existence. So that's kind of part of one discovery. Also, supposedly, they've discovered things which allow people to control gravity. So the idea that we can have, safer aircraft, for one. And also, things even beyond that, trying to understand, okay, well, why are these things visiting? What do they have to teach us? What do we have to teach them? Interesting conversations around that, though. There are theories that, simply they're studying us. There are theories that say that we could be part of their experiment, that we're genetically related to those visiting. It could be that there are evidence of alternate realities, dimensions where people can hop from one dimension to another. Ultimately, hopping from one dimension to another, encountering other civilizations, helping them to learn, teaching them, educating, protecting them. And apparently this all started from Roswell, which I know you, Christine, have a bit of experience about the time then, though, but apparently it kind of accelerated around that time. And since then, we've had more activity that they've been studying. So Disclosure is going to ultimately hopefully through kind of legislative kind of disclosure, kind of through like the American kind of Pentagon and all that, we'll eventually publicly do that. And hopefully if we can do that, we'll make the world know, okay, this is what humanity is, basically. This is what they're facing. Like, this is what we have uncovered that could improve the lives of so many. But yeah, I'm interested to talk to you, Christine, about the whole Roswell situation, because I don't feel like I know enough about that, though. But I know you were kind of very young then, though, but you kind of grew up in the years after where it was a very big thing to talk about and became almost like a pop culture phenomenon, really. So what was that like?
Well, I was always into anything weird anyway, but I kind of rejected it because mainstream rejected it. So you would get things like, there used to be a magazine, I don't know if it exists now, called the 14 Times.
I still get that one. Yeah, that's a great magazine. I like that. Yeah.
Right. And you would get articles, but to be honest, they didn't reach out and grab me in the way some other things did. Again, because the narrative was that it never happened. It didn't happen. It was a weather balloon. So years afterwards, when I was coming into some degree of awareness, maybe about 13, 14, already there were people that were at Roswell, people that lived around that area saying, yeah, it wasn't a weather balloon. Somebody had got hold of a piece of material that they called the balloon, and it had this ability to not crumple. They would crumple it up and open it, and it would be completely flat. So already then you got the hippies going down. You've got the weirdos, the dope smokers as well, and that I don't think helped the narrative. There was always that kind of yeah. Don't forget we're in the hippie era, and so for a long time it was just something that was on the fringe. However, I think the whole disclosure thing, I started to read up on about that a few years ago, and I realised these are eminently sensible people that are coming out and saying, this happened. They're not idiots, they're not dope smokers and all of that. These are people that have worked in Area 51. They're people that had high ranking jobs, and they're coming out and saying there's been contact, and that we've got things, the reverse engineering particularly. Of course they're going to be interested in that. But I get to the other look at, why would they not disclose? And it has to be to do with power. If you accept and acknowledge there's a race of beings that can propel themselves around and jump in and out of things, and can shut down. I find that fascinating when the nuclear plants have been shut down by these visitors.
The Cold War, apparently, that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that tells me that they're non-violent. They obviously, you see, we live here on this planet. We're not aware of, say, we went to nuclear war, for instance. I mean, it'd be devastating. What would that do to the rest of the universe? I mean, I mean, if they wanted to knock us out the sky, they could do it because they've got advanced technology. And I think our governments all around the world have said, no, it's not real because it takes away power from them. There's a couple of countries, though, that are quite open about these visitations. Um, and I think, the more we have conversations like this, the more the internet people can research and see, then we're eventually going to, go, yeah. But who are they? Where do they come from?
That's the big question, isn't it? I have some sort of theories, really, because one of the most interesting ones, and it seems theoretically possible, could it be us humans? If you think thousands of years from now, what we could evolve into,
Yes, yeah, totally, totally,
could it simply be us?
totally. Sorry, it gets me excited. Somebody else thinks
Go
the
for it.
same.
Keep the energy flowing.
Absolutely. I mean, what would be the point, in all this that's going on? We're evolving. We know we're evolving. I mean, if you look at a man from the 20th century and go back to one of there will be significant. We are evolving physically, yeah? Now, what if, like you believe, that they're our future selves? This is what we're evolving to be. Why not? Why not? And they found a way of coming back and looking at us. This is where the interdimensional thing comes with me. Are they, in and out of dimensions, timelines? We think we know it all. But, I would love to have Einstein sitting here and saying, what do you think, mate? And it that kind of stuff melts my head. I'm just an old woman. I can't get there when you start talking about those kind of theories. But we just think this is everything. I think it's a massive more that we haven't even got a clue, and they're just popping in and out.
Yeah, we're just a drop of water in the ocean, aren't we?
I think they're learning from us. We're learning from them, although we don't perhaps realise it. I think, and here's my thing, I don't believe they would let us have the technology they've got because we aren't evolved spiritually enough to use it. We would use it to blow each other out the water. I'm sorry, but man is. I mean, we're all at it at the moment with what's going on around the world. This one don't like that one, and they all go. You imagine somebody that had that superior technology in the wrong hands. What could that do? They won't let us have it, and this is why I think when they shut down the nuclear warheads, because we shouldn't have that technology unless we can use it properly or for.
So good.
Sorry,
Yeah.
got me on one there.
Never apologise. Never apologise. Because it seems to be like this whole awakening that's been happening the last few years about mediums and sorts. People are being very introspective and being often. I know a lot of friends and family have been through very personal struggles. It's almost like we've all been given our very own individual, quite frankly, hells to go through. And I know many people have overcome things, and over the last few years, I've noticed them become more open, very kinder people, more patient with each other, and more open to talking about life in general, really. And I feel myself going through that same process, really. So I kind of wondered if humanity at the moment, yes, we're being kind of monitored, so to speak, to make sure we're not going to go beyond a certain dangerous parameter that could affect others out there. But I feel like we are kind of on the way to that upgrade, really. And but yeah, that's kind of one theory, that it could be us in the future. But it could be that in the future that future humanity encounters something that could be a threat to their existence. So with them being able to hop between dimensions or maybe through time, can go back to reverse certain decisions. So could it be that they're trying to divert us from that path? Also, could it also be like they're simply like there are other species out there that have evolved to a very high level of vibration that are simply studying us? We could simply just be ants in an ant farm. Or it could be that, we could be the next invitation into the universe. Like maybe we're at that point soon in the next maybe few hundred years of evolving. So yeah, we're willing to welcome you to our intergalactic community. It's like there's so many interesting theories around this though, and I find this fascinating. Sorry, I could see you wanted to blast off. Go for it.
No. I mean, I would love to be on Voyager, Star Trek, man. Right? I'm a massive Trek.
I'm drinking Earl Grey tea like Picard. His favourite
Oh,
tea.
oh, oh,
Tea Earl
he's
Grey.
still my beat.
Yeah,
Um,
class.
there was one. There was. I mean, I absolutely adore Star Trek. Um, there was one I remember, and they were parked off the planet, and the citizens of the planet were really sort of like at the point of being like Stonehenge, not Stonehenge, Stone Age man. Sorry, and of course they have that thing, don't they? The Prime Directive and all the rest of it. Um, and they were stuck or something, and they were trying to get out the atmosphere. And every time they did that, it was the people on the planet thought that they were some sort of god, and they were worshipping them, and all of this. And I thought about that. The time was passing differently. The people on the planet and the people um, in 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 the ship fascinated me how that could happen. But if you've got the ability to fly across the universe, right, you're going to be looking at time travel. You're going to be looking at interdimensional stuff, um,
Yeah.
and they were looking back on a society that we had been at one time, living in caves, living off the land and hunter gatherers and all that. When you think about it, it's not been that long, really. Um, since Roswell and all of that started, I think the whole, I don't know, maybe that it was significant in that it started to open people's minds. It just needed to see to open those people's minds because they want to interact. They want to help. Everything tells me they're benign. They want us to live at our
I
best. They don't want.
I believe they are. If you had the power to
Yeah,
cross the universe and encountered a species that you saw as a threat, I'd imagine it'd be very easy to eliminate that threat. I don't think it's going to be like the film, that film Signs. I don't know if you've ever watched that Signs film from years ago, where it was bizarre. It's an amazing film. It was about the prospect of there being an alien invasion where they just came to Earth, and it's about this man being testing his faith basically, and it had the most bizarrest ending. And spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't watched it, though. But basically, long story short, the aliens were defeated for one by closed doors and water. So yeah, it's a stranger thing because I do feel like there's a lot in the media and has been for many years, and it almost seems like it's more than just a coincidence. Though it's almost like it's like a steady, just a softening. Should you go from not knowing to knowing, it's going to be quite a fright for some people. I feel like Hollywood's being used as a way to pre-chew that knowledge. Like even though they're fantastical, ridiculous scenarios like Independence Day and such, and you think about Mars attacks and Men in Black and all sorts. But
I love
I think
Mars
there's,
Attack. I
I
absolutely
know
love
that's
Mars
so
Attack.
funny. One of Tim Burton's best actually,
It's
but it's so funny. But it's that '60s era ridiculousness. But yeah, I think in a way that there's been a plan to steadily disclose. But recently, I feel like the government's being kind of forced into a corner where so many people are talking about that now. They're almost going, okay, well, we're going to let the bull out the gate. We're going to control the direction of the bull, and so we need to make sure that the right narrative comes out. And that's where certain individuals are kind of leading the charge because there's two people it's worth researching. There's Dr. Stephen Greer, and he's one individual that's kind of heading one
absolute.
side. Suppose me. Have you heard about him?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you
I've
know
been
about him. So
following him
he's
for a long.
he's fascinating. I would love to get him down in a room, like sit back with a beer and just having a good kind of conversation, really, because his thing about he's more of a spiritual person, but also has a medical background. But he feels like it's his responsibility to gather as many witnesses as possible and be part of kind of forcing government to start talking about this thing openly, though, because he believes that he knows what they are. He's had first-hand experience and others as well that he's very kind of carefully kind of disclosing. He believes that they're very benign, very kind, and he's been in communication with them. So that seems quite amazing in itself, really. Like I find it almost hard to believe, but I don't want to doubt him because everybody should have a voice. But he's kind of conducted this CE5 program. Basically, he's able to formulate a certain meditation that he does. He invites people in groups to sit down for a few hours in the dark, essentially, and he's able to call these things
I've
in.
seen,
He's actually able
yeah,
to instruct them to do that. And I thought that seems too good to be true. But again, is that my programming, the way that I was brought up to think? So he's one person trying to do that, and he's also going to be working on this archive, which is made available to the public. And I think I'll leave a link in the description here, so you can make your own opinions, your own judgments there. Though, but ultimately, he's been collecting a lot of data, so a lot of videos, documents, photos of some things that's going to turn your hair white, let's just say. And I've looked through it myself. I haven't looked through the entire library just yet, though. But there's some things in there that made me think, how are you getting away with this? Like, if this is indeed true, crikey, like, how is he still walking, though? But he says that he has protection and so on, though. But there are a lot of questions, though. Is he exaggerating for fame? Is he not, though? But I think it seems to come from a good place. Sorry, Christine, go on.
no, absolutely. I think he's safe because he came out and disclosed. I think he had to. Had he, because at one time, if I remember back, um, it wasn't known who this whistleblower was that had been saying stuff. And I think he was, yeah, he felt he was in real danger. That's why he disclosed and came out publicly.
Yes, he's lost friends, he says.
Oh God, yeah. Um, Things were bugged in his house and stuff like that. And then I watched one of the things that you're on about. I think it's on Amazon Prime, and he goes outside with.
Is it the
Sorry,
Lost Century or the fifth contact, whatever it is?
the
I think it's about three
fifth.
documentaries on there so far.
That's right. Yeah, it's Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. I think he's
That's the
calling
one.
it.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, yeah, and they're all sat out in a field, and obviously it's being filmed. Um, okay, here's the thing. Either the guy's a complete lunatic and he's having hallucinations. If that's the case, then everybody else that's there with him is having hallucinations. Um, or he's just doing this because he's a dick and wants people to look at him, or he, he's got a reason for doing it. I watched that, and these people are not, again, sorry to people that smoke dope. They're not dope heads, they're not hippies. They're people my age. They're intelligent people. They're doctors. They're they're going out and they're sitting there, and he does this thing, and you could see stuff lighting up in the sky, and they were appeared to be communicating. Now, okay, we live in a thing where deep fake and all the rest of it, we can be anybody we want to be. But I think he's the real deal. I absolutely do. He's held steadfast so long, and he's put himself in danger. You don't just do that. Yeah, he's a real deal.
The more I've seen him speak, the more kind of consistency that I find, really. So he seems to be kind of sticking to this narrative anyway. So usually over time, when you wear a mask for so long, you start to see the cracks and what's hidden behind. So I kind of wonder. So I think he also did. So this other thing called the lost century, I believe, and his theory is we've lost 100 years, and it kind of links into what I was saying about this feeling of like technology not quite being up to date, not being kind of what it's really supposed to be, because he believes around the time of Roswell and such, like certain discoveries were made that were withheld from humanity that they've been experimenting with kind of in secret and so on. This is obviously, again, I don't know if this is true or not. This is just what I'm kind of, repeating from what he said anyway, but it is interesting. So like they've discovered ways to generate electricity without pollution, to travel great distances with little to no energy, about control of gravity, of manipulating objects with vibrations, all sorts of kind of stuff that would sound like it's from a sci-fi film. And he says basically like this technology has been available for the last 100 years or so, but withheld. And he says basically if it was put into place, that we would have never had needed to use fossil fuels in any way. And we talk about global warming right now. We think about, well, could things have been different if we made use of that? And then you kind of question like, why would you humanity?
Well, Tesla was going down that route, wasn't he? About free power, free energy. He did experiments where, yeah, I guess we're getting off of it a bit, but yeah, um,
It links in, yeah.
these people, or these visitors, we, you know, look at our space travel. It's clumsy, it's heavy. Um, they seem to flit around the universe, you know. Um, so they're so much more advanced than what we are. We're babies. We're babies. And I think they're watching us. I think they're helping us. I think maybe they're drip feeding the technology to us. And I feel that the disclosure, the revelation, it's being drip fed into the general population.
It seems to be now, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to. I go back to the age thing again. I remember seeing the very first microchip on Tomorrow's World, and from that day, the whole world opened up. Computers, the phones, the whole lot. I'd love to come back in 200 years and see what we can do then. But we have to temper it. And I think in a way, isn't it nice if they are looking after us? Hold on, don't press that red button because it's a little bit dangerous. We're a bit like kids. Look what we're doing to the ecosystem and all the rest of it. We need reining in, and our leaders seem more intent with their egos and their megalomania. We need somebody that can pull us in and go, "Oh," and that's what I think they are. Maybe they're guardians of the universe. Maybe I'm romantic. Maybe I like to think that.
It'd be nice to think that, really, because I think just like I speak to other humans, really, I seek to learn from other people and, to gather an understanding of their experiences in order to improve my own life, sorry, and maybe improve their life in some way or form by me sharing what I share. So imagine like what other things we can learn from others out there. If we're able to understand as well, they may think in a way that we may not be able to fully be able to interpret or understand. That's the thing. So we'd have to ultimately kind of find a way, I suppose, to bridge the gap. It's just another part of the conversation as well. Like the other person with disclosure as well, and they seem to be both butting heads at the moment. Interestingly, is a character called Elizondo, and he's somebody who was in, I believe, the American Air Force and kind of worked in some secret operations. And now he's gone very public to sort of describe the things that he's seen and the experiences of others, and up to the point where I think recently he released a book called Imminent or something, and he's been kind of featured in a lot of kind of mainstream media now. And we have kind of, apparently Dr. Greer saying, okay, well, this isn't, this guy is actually part of the government's disclosure, where he's trying to kind of guide the narrative in a way that makes us believe that we don't know what these things are, and that they're to inspire fear in some way or form. And then obviously Elizondo says, saying in return, well, I am real, I do know these things. And Dr. Greer isn't really who he says he is, and so on. So it's interesting why, while two people ultimately have the same goal, but are approaching it with different narratives. So shouldn't they be working together, even if the eyes aren't fully aligned?
You would think so, but again, if that is the case, this guy is a government disclosure. He's trying to bring in the government narrative, whereas Dr. Greer is free and independent. I tend to go to believe him because he's been around. If they can't work together, there you go, we get conflict even coming into something like that, which is a great shame. I wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Yeah?
Yes.
The bit
Great
at the
film.
end.
I don't remember the exact bit at the end, though. You might have to remind me there.
All the visitors came out and took the hands of some of the people that were there and took them back into their vehicle. Can you remember that?
I do remember that, yeah, just about, yeah.
If you'd been offered that chance, would you have taken it?
Ooh. I suppose it depends how annoyed I got with Earth at that point. I would say it depends on what my gut would tell me. I mean, logically, I would say yes. It depends on kind of how it felt. I'd need to understand the vibrations of like ultimately, it's just like the way it is here on Earth. Like we, as mediums, speak to different things from different places. It's like you have to trust the vibrations. So I'll treat that as essentially like another entity, really. Like does it really understand what I am? Do I understand what it is and then its intent? Do we have something to teach each other? I imagine it has a lot more to teach me than I would, being a remedial human. But yeah, that's a big question. Yeah, what would you do?
I'd have to go. I'd have to go, Kieran. I've got to say, I'll come back and tell you all about it. Um, God, I couldn't not. I couldn't not go. I don't think. No, I would. Look, I have a problem going up in an aeroplane. I hate flying.
Same, but it's not flying, is it? Though it's something different.
No, exactly. If something can do what it does, yeah, I'm happy to put my life and see what's out there because I, when I was a little girl, I mean, I might be just some crazy old bird, but when I was a little girl, I can remember belonging to somewhere else. And it was like before I was born, and it wasn't Earth. Um, yeah, it felt like somewhere else. That's all I can do. Yeah.
I understand that because it's interesting that you say that because I've been looking into the theory as well that apparently like mankind has been interacting with these things for thousands of years because we'll see a lot of kind of Renaissance paintings depicting interesting objects in the sky. So sometimes they'll interpret them as chariots flying in the sky. Well, at certain stages of the Renaissance, they were kind of move on to kind of more realistic kind of depictions of the human body and the world around us. But why were they detailing kind of chariots in the sky? And there'd be certain objects and some things that seemed very similar to the kind of things we're taking photos of today. Again, it may just be simply just be imagination and coincidence, so who knows? But what kind of fascinates me is the fact that I was looking up on this book called the Book of Enoch, which is, I believe it's one of the so-called forbidden Bibles, though, but basically it's one of the Bibles that is no longer in circulation by the church. Apparently, it tells the story of Enoch, who is apparently, I think, Moses' granddad. So if Moses was a real person, I don't know for sure, but if he was, apparently it's about his life. And basically, people in the desert, so Samaria, something like that. This also links into the Knights Templar as well, but maybe that's another conversation for another day. But yeah, the discovery was made that this text depicts an experience where this person had encountered certain beings. It describes kind of interactions with it, journeys it was on, and essentially being taken on in a glass vehicle of sorts, then being shown the universe. And in these texts, it describes the solar system, our solar system, thousands and thousands of years before Galileo started to kind of describe the solar system. And even then, he was seen as kind of someone saying something that shouldn't be said. Basically, it was forbidden to kind of talk about the solar system in that way because he was just simply trying to say, well, the Earth rotates around the sun, not the sun around the Earth, and so on. Just the most basic thing that was seen as blasphemous. But yet this text, a long time ago, kind of described this. Yeah, at the time there was no means to kind of explore the local universe. So yeah, apparently there's been kind of like an interesting kind of story around that. I think you can kind of read the book online now. I mean, I don't know if the book has been edited so many times. I would assume so. So I don't think we'll ever see the original record of that. But yeah, it's just interesting as well to think, well, potentially could that be the case? Because you think about the pyramids of Giza and other pyramids across the world being linked up in some way. There must be some sort of influence, maybe.
No, you're right. For such an ancient book to have that in it and then it was removed, why was it? I find it interesting. Why was it removed? It's like the Gnostic Gospels; they were taken out of, or the Council of Nicosia. They decreed that they didn't want these certain gospels in there. Now I've read those gospels and it gives a whole new light on Jesus altogether. I mean, really. So I have no doubt that I haven't read the Book of Enoch, but I've watched it, some stuff on TV. And yeah, they removed stuff that didn't fit their narrative, and we see the power of the church rising as a result. Any dissent So they're describing our planet and the trajectory of the, if that's the right word, of the planets. How did they know? How did they know? Yeah, I mean, there's, there's, well, there's you, Kieran. You're standing here, right? And you're looking up and you see something. From your viewpoint, you can only see what's above you. You can't see the entire planet. How do they work it? They must have been looking down, or they must have had access to knowledge.
Yeah. I think that this will definitely need a part two, I think, anyway. So yeah, I suppose one last question, just to finish off, really, like, okay, the idea of there being other life out there, basically, like, what does that mean to spiritual people who speak with spirits every day, basically, like, what are they out there to us here?
I think I just think we're all part of the same thing. Um, we're all part of this great big beautiful universe, and you know, you and I are mediums. I know that somehow, some way, somebody in the greater universe, the conscience, whatever you want to call it, can tell me things about a person that's sat in front of me. I don't know how that works. Somehow we can tap into it. So I think aliens, I don't like calling them aliens, let's call them visitors. Our visitor friends are just part of that. They're just a different part. In the same way my dog is a dog, yeah, and it's a different part. We all make up this beautiful universe, this greater consciousness. And I just think it means for people like you and me, maybe we will open up to these visitors. That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Oh, it'll be a beautiful thing, really, because you think, like, if we discover life out there, basically, like, wouldn't our fights and arguments and such, like, wouldn't it seem just kind of insignificant? I suppose that, why don't we love each other and get along? So yeah, it kind of opens up our mind to the rest of the universe and make us realize that we need to start really learning and growing again. So yeah, hey, that was a great conversation, Christine. So thank you for taking the time, and
You're welcome.
more
It's
from
a
each
new
other.
cup of coffee and a cigarette now.
Yeah,
I think we may return to this subject at some point, don't you?
hundred
Because it's
percent. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
I mean, we what another one if you'd be interested, ancient aliens. You know, we could go there and look at them a bit
yeah.
deeper because,
I've heard about the
well,
Anunnaki and these other sort of description. Yeah, I think Anunnaki being a literal translation of like the ones from the sky and all this kind of stuff. I've heard about that, and obviously I wasn't there thousands of years ago, but I can only go by their descriptions really. But an opportunity to
well,
learn.
I may be old, but certainly wasn't there 1,000 years ago. So,
You take care, Christine. Have a lovely, lovely night.
bye bye, everybody.